Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
AMC is looking to TNA for an adrenaline rush.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence. The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to episode 976 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. King of Podcasts is here with you. kingofpodcasts.com. We are 2 weeks away from the 13th anniversary of the program. Started this again. It'll be on the day of December 18th, 2012. We'll be doing it 13 years after. So I guess that'll be what? 978? Something like that. And when you thought wrestling would be a little bit dying down right now because we're well past the pay-per-views, Survivor Series this past weekend, we'll touch on that a little bit. And we have Saturday Night's Main Event coming up where we're set up right now with Gunther probably going to be the odds-on favorite to go ahead and win over Jey Uso, right? To take on John Cena in the Last Time Is Now tournament. I haven't paid attention to it. I can just say that. But I will say that everything else that's going on in wrestling has been superseded by a major news story that happened yesterday. AMC Networks, the makers of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Walking Dead, Hell on Wheels, Mad Men, among other shows, they officially have announced that TNA will be moving their Thursday Night Impact program to their channel on January 15th, 9 to 11 p.m., a 2-hour slot. They're getting the Spike time slot. They're back to where they were with Spike TV. And who'd have thought we were going to get back to that? When you look at the history of TNA, where they have been, it was 20 years ago that they were on Spike TV Thursday nights, 9 to 11. And there we go. Now we are full circle once again. It's kind of kismet for TNA, the company that, you know, if WWE was not involved, of course, not many people would care about this. But because of the involvement of NXT embedded into TNA via WWE for the purpose of what this partnership they've had for the last 2 years has been, the ultimate goal that Carlos Silva and TNA and Anthem Entertainment had wanted has been granted. They got their wish to work with WWE like they did, allow their championships to be taken hostage by the likes of Trick Williams or Kalani Jordan or JC Jane and whoever else. Li Ming Lee now. They did it. And now we're at the point where you can say what you want. Carlos Silva can go ahead and talk about the fact that he worked on this and WWE was not involved in the process. But we know how it really worked out. Let's just go into a couple of things that have been talked about here. Carlos Silva has been very vocal regarding this announcement. So let's get into that real quick. They're going to be emanating from the Curtis Cullen Center, Dallas, Texas, for their first night on television. It will be live. The word is that they will be doing live or taped, which is kind of like where they were with Spike, where they would do live episodes as they're doing tapings, which is the original format they had before. 3 years, $30 million total. So $10 million towards production. Let's look into it right now. And a couple of things that have been talked about. So Carlos Silva says that the partnership with WWE and NXT is going to continue, saying, quote, "It's a big part of helping us get this deal. It's now being part of being able to give almost back a little bit and provide a big platform for some of those superstars as well. The storylines and things we're going to do together, they're just going to continue to grow into 2026. So it's obvious that this deal was dependent on the fact that NXT or WWE Superstars will be available on AMC for Thursday nights. So regardless of what TNA is going to get, TNA got the deal. The TV deal, Anthem, as a corporate company, they're happy with this. To take this show off of Access TV. If they want to put a show on Access, maybe they could put Explosion there, whatever else they want to do. They can do something else with that channel. But now they get twice the audience, possibly, on this cable network. AMC is a network right now that doesn't have a whole lot of original programming anymore. I haven't even looked at what they have as of late, but they're not doing so much in their own sense right now because they are, like FX or others, they have been known for various things that they've done for themselves. So at the moment, the series that they have at the moment, they have Nautilus and Rice's Telemasca, The Secret Order. Other shows are like The Red King or Us the Assassin, but those are AMC Plus shows. There's not a lot of shows they have that are necessarily on AMC Networks and what they're going to be doing. So they have Walking Dead spinoffs. Walking Dead was there first. They have Dark Winds. They have Sanctuary, A Witch's Tale. They have Scrublands. So they have some shows on here, but nothing that compares to the impact that Breaking Bad or Mad Men or Walking Dead have done before them. AMC is a smaller end of the cable network spectrum because they don't have as many channels that are together. AMC Networks is a smaller brand in the whole sense of things. They're not set up to be in those other big companies that are out there, much like, let's just say, they're almost like into the same kind of comparison as Nexstar owning CW. And they have never really been that much into sports programming, as far as I know. In terms of the sports portfolio that AMC has, they have an international division that does operate sport channels in Europe. And they also have fast channels that are on channels that, like, on, platforms like Tubi or Pluto TV and things like that. And in terms of live sports, they do docuseries, original series, but they don't have any licensed programming where they're actually carrying live sports programming. They haven't done anything like that before. They have done scripted, unscripted programming for Hulu. They have done stuff for AMC Plus. And if they do any international programming, it's the rights to carry soccer leagues like UFL Europa and Conference League or Formula One racing, things like that. So in America, nothing like this has ever really been brought up before. Anything of sports that they do right now, they haven't really had much of that. They do have a division called Skydance Sports that they have put together, which was a joint venture between NFL and Skydance, the network that Paramount owns, and a bunch of other networks on top of that. But they've also just basically done NFL docuseries. But again, nothing to do with live sports. So, however they're going to be doing this, we don't know what TNA is going to get for their portfolio or what they're going to get for their programming. But they're getting a prime time slot on AMC every Thursday night. What kind of ratings they'll get, I don't know. But is TNA going to even have their own individual identity? No. With this deal they made with WWE, and let me just make this clear. We're going to go into what Carlos Silva said, because he has talked a lot in the last 24 hours about this. So let me make a point about the TV deal and what he has said. On Busted Open, he said, quote, "It was a team effort. There was ups and downs. Any deal that you do, there's moments where you say, oh my goodness, is it slipping through our fingers or not? But I think AMC was really excited about it too. They're getting to the live sports entertainment business. They've always built great characters. We know that. And now I think together, we're going to give them something every Thursday night, 52 weeks a year. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. AMC was given programming. I don't know how much of their own shows that they really did themselves. But the kind of showrunners that AMC had for their programming, those people are not there anymore. We're not going to get Vince Gilligan or Matthew Weiner. We're not getting those people, okay? We're not getting Glenn Mazzara, okay? We're not getting showrunners, and all these writers are going to be coming in to write for TNA. That's not happening. So you can spin that all the way you want, Carlos, but that's not happening either. Now, I understand you have to go and be the ambassador, and the fact that you got TNA to go and get this to be made possible. I get that part. And that's fine to go and give this story about, there's a little bit of drama about the fact that they're going to get this here. Got it. Ariel Helwani puts a good point about this when he saw the announcement for AMC TV. They seemingly have had 15 lives during their run, and it looked grim not that long ago. To score a deal like this in the current media climate is huge for the brand. But TNA couldn't have done it by themselves. Anthem Entertainment could not have put this together if not for the help of Nick Khan. Let me just explain all this real quickly. He spoke with John Alba at Sports Illustrated, and he says that, quote, that first of all, no, we did all the negotiations ourselves with me leading the charge on the TNA side, and then CAA, Creative Artists Agency, leading the charge as our representative and our partner on the deal. Okay, to be clear about what he's saying right there, Nick Khan originally worked and did sports representation and led the sports division at Creative Artists Agency. Of course, they represent talent, represent companies. And remember, Nick Khan has been responsible with his other people that he brought from CAA that he brought in when he became CEO. Okay, when he became president of WWE, he was responsible for bringing certain people from CAA from his fold where he worked at a CAA and brought them into WWE. And there are still people within CAA, obviously, he has ties with. Those are the people that are working with Carlos Silva on the deal. So CAA, which Michael Ovitz created it, 30 years ago, an amazing, powerful talent agency, an entertainment company, working with alongside Endeavor and now TKO, and being able to go and do the deals he's done. Okay, because there have been CAA type representatives working in the TKO fold under Endeavor, under TKO, or under WWE, and they are the ones that are able to go and make the deals. So Carlos Silva can be in the room heading the deal. He has to be the one that's saying yes or no. He's not the negotiator. CAA was under the behest of Nick Khan, because Nick Khan gave the green light for those CAA representatives to even take on TNA or Anthem Entertainment as a client. Without Nick Khan, TNA doesn't get a deal. That's how powerful Nick Khan is. He goes on to say, quote, look, WWE and NXT are very important partners to us, so we kept them in the loop. They knew what was coming. They knew about the deal before you knew about the deal. But no, they've got their own deals. They're very busy with their deals, so they let us go out and cut a deal and get on a major network. And I think they're happy for us, and we were happy with the way it went. They knew everything that was going on. CAA would have completely stayed transparent and in communication with where things were going with the deal, because the parameters were already put in place. Here is what the expectations are. So the CAA folks went ahead and tried to make the best deal possible for TNA. But no matter what, the CAA folks were pretty clear. They got the AMC. You're telling me that Carlos Silva would have been able to get to AMC Networks and convince them and persuade them to go ahead and buy TNA for a TV deal? To buy programming from TNA? Are you telling me that they're going to do that? No, it's CAA. So he can go ahead and take the credit all he wants, or, kind of spread the credit around. That's fine. But it still comes down to the fact that it wasn't just him. Let's just make that point. Now, what we have to talk about as well is that there have been concessions made as a result of all this. Okay? The title changes that have been done. Now we're seeing the same with the talent, because there was an announcement made earlier today on the Ariel Helwani show. Carlos Silva was on with him. Let me just let him say it.
You did mention Joe Hendry. Could you tell us officially what is his status? Has he signed with WWE? Is he leaving TNA?
Joe is now part. You'll see him on NXT all the time. As part of our partnership, you may see Joe come back and be on TNA shows, because that's just part of what we do with WWE and NXT is share wrestlers.
Okay, but he's a WWE wrestler now.
That's right.
How do you feel about that?
I'm super happy for Joe. I'm super happy for WWE. We kind of all worked on it together, and Joe's a great talent and a super good guy.
Okay. That was the one thing that I think some people thought might be inevitable with him being featured so much on WWE, that eventually he might move over. And that's maybe the gift and the curse, for lack of a better term, of the relationship, because now there's a chance to get to know some of your talent, not implying at all that they're going to try to poach guys. But you know what we kind of talked about this the last time you were in here.
Yeah, look, I mean, the partnership is going well, and we've talked about it. We hope that TNA creates talent that WWE wants. That means that we're also doing a great job in building talent.
Okay. Yeah, TNA is also basically submitting to the fact that they are being treated like a developmental territory, of which the WWE can also poach talent from there. They'll get their TV exposure on that channel. If they want to send NXT people over to go and work over there, they can do that too. And the real question is that will TNA be able to go ahead and do anything of their own accord? What kind of programming they're going to be allowed to go and do once they go to AMC, and how much involvement is WWE going to be having? Because they might not control so much of the booking over there in terms of the creative storytelling that might be going on there. What Tommy Dreamer, who else is there doing the work? Carlos Silva doesn't have any involvement with the creative. For him, as the representative for TNA Wrestling, as president, he's a suit for Anthem Entertainment. He cared about the relationship that was being made here. Okay. Once Scott D'Amore did not want to play ball with WWE in any partnership, Carlos Silva was having to go ahead and give WWE, the 500-pound gorilla, whatever they want. And they have. Oh, you want Joe Hendry? Absolutely. Thank you for the TV deal. Oh, this was so wonderful for you to do. Can we give you anybody else? Can we give you Leon Slater? Can we give you Mike Santana? Well, whatever you want. I mean, you just took care of me for life. You got this TV deal for 3 years, and now I can go ahead and relax and, keep wearing my TNA hat and just act like I'm doing something. He was the suit involved to be in the room during the persuasion, during negotiation of this contract, of this TV deal. And because of this deal, Joe Hendry can go ahead and go on a basic contract over there. Who knows what they're going to do with him? Will he stay on NXT? Would he ever be a main roster star? Probably not. I mean, Triple H, to get past that filter, that glass ceiling of his, to go and be on that main roster. Do you want to be on that main roster? Probably not. If I were Joe Hendry, I wouldn't want to be up there. To go and start that over again and try to do the whole I believe in Joe Hendry kind of thing and do that again. People are going to remember, okay, maybe you'll get another run to the Royal Rumble. Maybe you'll get another WrestleMania moment where you can also get squashed by Randy Orton. Who knows? But yeah, that is surprising. And the way that Ariel Helwani asked the question, Carlos Silva wasn't directly saying yes. He just says, we like the partnership we have with him. And then after a second nudge, Ariel Helwani got him to confirm that Joe Hendry has moved on. So he could be on TNA shows. You may see him come back, but the truth is he's not. TNA is going to have certain stars that if WWE wants to go ahead and have them, hey, we got you your TV deal, buddy. We can have what we want. We can do whatever we want. So in essence, what TNA has become as a result of this TV deal is they are what Ring of Honor is to AEW. And actually what Ring of Honor was to the WWE, in the mid-2010s, when the talent they had that was either Ohio Valley or from FCW, they weren't panning out as much, and they needed to have some instant talent. Remember, with NXT going on, Triple H, he didn't want to go through the whole trouble of having stars who were being created with that creative team down there, only for them to be taken up for Vince to go and make a sink or swim with more of them swimming than sinking, or more of them sinking than swimming. So he said, well, I'm going to just find these other stars to bring on. They're going to be good wrestlers. Because the one thing was, you can build gimmicks all you want, which is what Triple H was made to do down there, under his direction, under Vince's direction. But he'd rather have the wrestlers. So he didn't have to worry about the part of having to go and train wrestlers. Let's just polish them. We don't want to go through and create new wrestlers overnight. So the NIL program, I don't think was ever his bag in the first place. We've had a couple of stars that have made their way through and still a little bit green, but they're working their way. But nevertheless, what NIL star has come through the rankings that has really stood out onto the main roster? None. They haven't let Trick Williams go up there. Carmelo Hayes is floundering over there. Tiffany Stratton, yeah, you could say it's somewhat. We never saw the Cavender twins. There were all these other stars we kept hearing about with NIL, never made it up to that main roster. I don't even know if they made it in NXT or not. There are just some folks in TNA that still have a good eye for talent, are able to go and bring their people into the company. And what will happen now with the TV deal is that because of the association with WWE, with the association with a new TV deal and better exposure, yeah, there might be some AEW stars that are going to be poached. Some GCW stars, some MLW stars, NWA. You can see all the independents lining up for a chance to go and get noticed here and see if someone from TNA is going to pick them up. But since Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, he's used it for what he's done it with as kind of that pseudo-territorial, maybe not even so much minor league system, but just like that next step away from the top. TNA is being positioned as the Ring of Honor that Triple H was able to tap into and pillage whenever he wanted from 2010 to 2016? Pretty much what he did. Not even farther than that. But think of all the stars he had. He wants to think that, well, this is the answer to all my prayers here. I can start taking from TNA and I can find my Adam Cole or Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins or all that kind of stuff. I can find those guys and bring them over. And maybe we can turn them over into talent. So that's what they're thinking. And there's also a point where I think with TKO, they can say to themselves, well, you know what? We gave TNA this deal and, we can cut some overhead again. Once we get to the next quarter or, right before WrestleMania, we could do another purge and really get rid of some talent and really cut our bottom line down to the bare bone. And then these Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa types, whatever, we can let them go to TNA on some cheap deal. They're going to be on television. Why does it matter how much they're going to get paid? It doesn't make a difference. There's a lot of things that TNA gets the TV deal, and that's all they're getting. But I think they are in bed with the devil right now because WWE is the beast that is going to be able to control. As this TV deal goes on, this partnership will continue because TNA owes a huge debt of gratitude, but more importantly, they owe plenty of favors to WWE for the duration. And there's nothing they can do about that. More from Carlos Silva. He spoke with Denise Salcedo earlier tonight and asking about TNA or AEW being the number 2 promotion. Carlos Silva saying, quote, we hear about it all the time and we talk about it all the time. We're competing with ourselves to be the best promotion we can be. Right now, there is a big, big number 1, and that's WWE. And TKO is their parent company. Both WWE and UFC are number 1 in both their categories. We're lucky to have a partnership with them. And we're going to continue to make TNA great as a result of that. Whether all talk around, we are bigger than AEW or is AEW bigger than us, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you like TNA and you want to watch TNA. And by the way, if you like AEW, you should watch AEW. It's okay. You're allowed to watch all the different shows and be a wrestling fan. It's part of the competitive nature, and it's part of the wrestling sort of undercurrent that happens on social. But I think a lot of it is just a bunch of clickbait that people are just trying to get people to click. We're going to try to keep trying to do the best we can. Everyone's already seen the difference, and they're telling us that we're doing better. We're going to grow, and now we've got AMC to do it in 2026. I don't think there was that much of a difference. I don't think that TNA has had that much of a growth spurt since Scott D'Amore left. I mean, they've been in some bigger venues for events. They're going to more of the 3,000 to 5,000 type of ratio. They're not going to Canada or Mexico like they were before. They got a few things like that are going on for them. That's fine. But the one thing is that I think for TNA, you have to look at it like this too, is that they don't want to be on their own again, because this kind of deal that happened when TNA has held on to their TV contract on their own, they've gone through a roller coaster. Let's just look back at what they've done. They made the initial deal 2004 on Fox Sports Net. That was a 1-year deal. Then there were shows online. Remember, their own pay-per-views as well. And then they found their home on Spike TV, which is now Paramount Network. Of course, it's ancient history right now, but don't forget the fact that with Spike TV, they were on until 2014, and then ratings were suffering on there. There was a change because Dixie Carter just did not do a good job running that company. And letting Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan take over for a good 2 years basically buried the company, because you just let those people just run roughshod. At least with WWE, you're not going to get that. At least I don't think so. But then we had the departure from Spike, and then you saw where they were just trying to hang on. And every network they went on got consistently smaller. Destination America, Pop TV for 4 years. And then they went to Pursuit Channel, where they were barely a blip on the radar, and the company was just falling apart. But then, that was after Billy Corgan had his run in the company there and was partially owner, along with a minority ownership, along with Dixie Carter. But then Anthem Entertainment took over, which, of course, they had Fight Network, and they have other properties themselves, Bellator, for combat sports. And then what happened was that Access TV, which Anthem owned, Access TV became their new home the last 5 years or so. And remember, TNA almost went under because COVID was, like many companies, was on life support. But even on Pursuit Channel, they were already on life support as it was. They were going back to the Soundstage Universal Studios, and they were just trying to hold on and just do shows as they could just to keep going. But again, remember, they had such a limited roster, and were just not going too much of anywhere. And they had their pay-per-views, but TNA was not talked about at all. TNA is being talked about right now because of the association with WWE. That's it. Otherwise, TNA would just be another punchline, as they always are. They would just be the step over. Now, again, I'm the person that loves underdogs. And I always kept an eye on TNA because I enjoyed the programming for all these years. It's this year that has been very mired in my thinking, because I feel indifferent to what WWE has done in terms of their influence on the product. When Scott D'Amore left, I could already tell you, I knew it was going to be making changes, and there was not going to be the same kind of feel to that product as it was. And, for TNA, they have given home to a lot of good stars that are much veterans and have been around for a long time. When you look at Nick Nemeth or Brian Myers or Eddie Edwards, Moose, they've always given me a good knockouts division, even though all that was going on there. Like the main roster part of the men's, it's whatever it was, X division, the knockouts division, I've enjoyed. But then when you started seeing the stars, they decided to go ahead and put the belts on. Trick Williams takes over, becomes the World Heavyweight Champion. And then you get to the knockouts title going on to NXT stars. Then you kind of lost me. And that was upsetting. But they were going to do it because they were part of the company. And when we heard about WWE and the fact that they were in this partnership once again, and it was so lockstep, and what Carlos Silva was hoping to get out of this whole deal was television, which is what he got. And so now this multi-year partnership is in play. They are strictly the new Ring of Honor for WWE. They want to be that placeholder for some of the stars that they don't want to take to the main roster. They can't put them on NXT so much. Or maybe they're just some stars that they're going to hope to bring on board that after some years of seasoning down and some work in TNA, they'll be able to get themselves to a certain point where they're TV ready to go and be taken over by WWE to be put on NXT or to the main roster, I guess. But I don't see anybody from TNA making the jump directly to the main roster. It will not happen. Now, let's put it to you like this as well. If you want to talk about who's in the hierarchy of promotions right now underneath WWE, well, AEW still is. What WWE is going to try to do with TNA will not allow them to be the number 2 promotion. It's just not going to happen. Because no matter what, TNA is only going to have so much resources from that $10 million in production they're going to be able to have. They're not going to be able to go and pull a lot of people on the contract. They're going to rely on the contracts of the talent that they have from their partnership. Maybe there's going to be a little more money for contracts. Maybe there's going to be some room to acquire some talent, which is where there's some people out there already putting out their dream list of who TNA should go after, which is honestly a bit delusional. Plus, it's more of wishful thinking. It's all the fantasy booking that's already starting right now. So there's already the pontifications of my fellow podcast wrestling brethren, of the publications out there, the dirt sheets. One, there's a column that came out saying that the new deal with the AMC, that first of all, big influx of money, which will allow them to run more live shows on Thursdays. We know it's only once in a while, not all the time. And having a live weekly show is pivotal in today's wrestling landscape if you want to grow your audience. That's not true. Because nobody's really paying attention to television. Again, you're getting 1 million viewers for SmackDown on average. You could say 2.3 to 2.8 million viewers on Netflix, a global audience. But they're not going to grow anything out of that. And I think there's a lot of people that you could say out of those hours, they're probably not watching it live. They're probably watching it on tape. They're just, going back when they want to go to it. They also say they'll be able to make more money to pay more talent, keep some other key players, or sign a few names away from other competitors. And also enough money to book bigger arenas, especially for pay-per-views, which will help them grow the brand and potentially secure an even better TV deal when this current one expires. Boy, that's some wishful thinking right there. They don't necessarily have a streaming deal that's going to be in place yet. I don't know if AMC Plus is going to be doing any kind of deal to stream their pay-per-views, or TNA Plus is what they're going to be doing with it. I don't know. For TNA, I'll take the article here from No DQ columnist Psycho Hurricane. I'll take a little bit of what he says here and put a spin on it. I think the money is going to be used for bigger arenas, the pay-per-views, the setup for those pay-per-views. And I think that, they'll be able to do some more significant shows to get some bigger gates. Obviously, put some more merchandise out there, get ahead and sell some of that. But this is a corporate company, Anthem Entertainment. They're going to use this, and they're going to kind of go in the smaller version, the smaller scale of what TKO does. Yeah, make the TV show look good, get the pay-per-views up, get those ticket prices up, kind of go that route. In terms of the talent, in terms of the creative, it depends on who's in there under the umbrella of TNA that is going to be able to go ahead and be able to go to do something with the storytelling that they can. So it's really a matter about how long Tommy Dreamer's there for that job and what they're going to be able to do. They have broadcast partners now that they have to answer to, because Access TV for the last 5 years, the company owns them. The company owns that channel, like they own Pursuit Channel. So it doesn't matter what they do. It didn't really matter what they were doing on that channel anyway. But they have to answer to the WWE because they have the partnership right now, especially with those that are holding titles in there or their stars being used in that product. So creative control, think Hulk Hogan times 10, okay? WWE is going to have a significant amount of creative control on this new TV show. Now, maybe they could do something where those stars will be better used and better utilized, unlike how they would be used in the main roster. That might be something that will happen. But for the most part, the booking decisions are going to be under the control of the creative control that WWE has for their contracted talent. That's not going to change. So on this corporate end, they're going to be able to make more money. And they're going to have more money coming in, which they can work with. So that's all they're getting from that. That's good for them. Listen, it's all going to be a good thing for them anyway. As a corporation, they're happy. They are so happy about this that they can take this off Access TV and make it a valuable intellectual property that's going to grow now because it now has this setup. So good for them. Good on them for that. I appreciate that. Frankie Kazarian has chimed in. He's the current World Heavyweight Champion. Didn't talk about the fact that he won the belt over Mike Santana. So yes, Mike Santana did win at Slammiversary. And then faster than you could say, Bob's your mother, Becky's your uncle. That's a bad cliche. Don't ask me about it. Just go look it up. Kazarian says that on this deal, quote, I'm saying right now the work begins. A lot of work has gone into this, but it's time to put up or shut up. It's time to put our foot in the gas and really show the world, show a much bigger audience what TNA is all about and what we've been about for the past 20 years. AMC is a big player, and this is their first venture to live sports. But when you look at their scripted dramas, they've already had some of the biggest shows a decade, 2 decades. The bar is already pretty high for us, but I have full confidence in our team that we can give them something very, very special. I will say this too. When we get to TNA Thursday Night Impact on AMC, let's make a point of this here. That coming up for them, I just need to figure out when is Hard to Kill coming up. It's going to be TNA Genesis. No Hard to Kill. We're going to do TNA Genesis now. We know this Friday they have Final Resolution, their last pay-per-view of the year. And they're going to stay in Dallas for Thursday Night Impact for their debut. And it looks like Genesis, I don't know when the exact date's going to be, but it's also going to be in Dallas. They have not given the exact date of it, but it could very well be that next Sunday that it comes out. And with that said, I would not be surprised. And I'm going to predict that Frankie Kazarian will not be holding that belt on the debut of Impact on TNA or on AMC. Frankie Kazarian will not be their champion. And I think that WWE will be influential as to who they want holding their World Heavyweight title come that Thursday Night Impact. Now, in terms of their pay-per-view coming up this weekend, currently the matches they have scheduled, and we should keep an eye on this and see what happens. So the TNA Knockout World title will be Li Ying Lee versus Zia Brookside. Inspiration versus Tessa Blanchard and Victoria Crawford for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team titles. Leon Slater versus AJ Francis for the X Division title. Frankie Kazarian versus JDC for the TNA World Heavyweight title. JDC will be having his last match at this show. Okay. Either which way, Kazarian will win that, and then JDC will move along into the sunset. Mike Santana versus Charlie Dempsey in a singles match. Hardy versus High Rise, that's Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe for the World Tag Team titles. Mance Warner will take on Matt Cardona in a street fight. Steve Macklin versus Channing Stacks Lorenzo for the TNA International Championship. An 8-man tag with Rascals, Trey Miguel, Myron Reed, Zachary Wentz, and Desmond Xavier versus Order 4s, Mustafa Ali, John Skeller, Jason Hodge, and Special Agent Zero. Not much to go and say really in terms of this particular pay-per-view and who they have on the roster. But I imagine that if this is what you're going to put out for a TNA pay-per-view to go and close out, what they're going to be putting on AMC will be significantly different. And I believe also the fact is that there'll probably be some contracts that are going to be expiring pretty soon, depending on what they had set up. I know there were some that were probably set up after Bound for Glory to go and expire, but we have to look and see what their contracts are and what they're set up on. Because then TNA could also go and overhaul the talent that they have. We don't know yet. So we're going to talk about the fallout from Survivor Series and where WWE is right now. Also talk about the fact that Freddie Prinze has started being a little bit vocal about the fact that ESPN is not necessarily happy with what WWE has already provided so far in terms of content for their new proprietary direct-to-consumer app. So Tony Khan spoke with the Battleground podcast leading up to the Dynamite show, which I forgot to go and watch tonight from Fishers in Indiana. And he thinks that 2025 has been a landmark year for AEW and its competition with industry leader WWE. Now, what he's saying, let me just go ahead and summarize here. He's highlighting business gains from expanding to HBO Max. The pay-per-view is being launched live in September at $39.99. Weekly shows arriving January 1st. Public viewership shows AEW Dynamite averaging 504,000 viewers in quarter 4, down 17% from last year. And SmackDown drawing over 1 million. Khan praises wrestlers, staff, and fans for strong live event support. Events like Full Gear pulling 135,000 to 140,000 buys. And Khan points to streaming growth, narrowing gaps ahead of 2026. He feels that as the challenger brand of the professional wrestling landscape, they've successfully narrowed the distance between itself and the market leader. It's been an opposite mirror, he says. We're the challenger brand in pro wrestling, and I think we've really closed the gap in a very meaningful way in 2025 on a number of key metrics. Now, we could talk about the fact that the ratings have taken a tumble, and it's just been like that. But that's across wrestling in general. We know it is. WWE and AEW are not prone to, they're both susceptible to ratings erosion because they're on cable or network television. The fact that CW and NXT has taken a bit of a tumble, that's not even because of the fact that the Nielsen's Plus big data rating system that came in October. That's regardless of that. CW was already getting a little bit of erosion on their ratings already because there is this consistency of the fact that streaming still is holding over cable and network because cable and network are still trying to do something to keep themselves relevant. And when you look at what network television is doing right now, they are just piling on more live sports programming as they can. And for cable, they want to be able to be in that live programming aspect as well, which they can't do it necessarily with large franchises like cable. But with USA or Netflix, yeah, they picked up WWE because that was something they could value with. They also were getting weekly content as a result from it. And that's the point. Live content weekly. That's where they're getting from all these wrestling shows. But none of these shows are growing a mainstream audience outside of their bubble of fans. That's all these wrestling promotions. Every one of them. So that doesn't help either. Now, Nick Khan, for the most part, I must say this, going back to WWE now, because we got to talk about them. Their deal with ESPN and what they've been doing. Nick Khan went on the Pat McAfee show today and made some comments that got me a little bit dumbfounded because I'm like, Nick Khan just came off a bit pretentious and a bit ignorant at the same time with what he said to Pat McAfee about what they're doing with their deal with ESPN and putting together live event programming. Here's what he said.
We think we have a promotional machine. That's what we are at our core. You have UFC and Dana, promotional muscle. In my opinion, the greatest fight promoter in the history of the fight game, Dana. You have the WWE's promotional muscle, which you guys have lived through it. We know how strong that can be promoted. What you can't do is just put together a fight, do a couple of boxing interviews and say, hey, please watch my fight on a network that people have not heard of. You got to have some promotional muscle behind it. We think we'll provide that, and we think we can develop more stars with it.
Okay, with Nick Khan, the UFC, you can absolutely go with the promotional muscle because UFC has already had a self-standing system of there's always going to be new stars. People are going to be looking forward to Saturday nights and going to the bar or going to watch on pay-per-view, whatever they're going to do to watch their content. Now, for UFC, they're in a great position because they're going to have all their programming on Paramount Plus. The CBS programming is going to have a number of major UFC fight night pay-per-views that would be pay-per-views, but they're going to be on CBS on Friday nights or Saturday nights. I forget which one. And then you still have the deal with Paramount Plus where all those pay-per-views, UFC is not even going to be charged for it. You're going to get it just for the Paramount Plus subscription. It's an incredible deal. So UFC was already built, and they can absolutely do combat sports better. But with WWE, you can't run it the same way. And you can't run boxing. Boxing and UFC, you can run the same way. Those are live sports. We don't have predetermination on those outcomes. Those are just sports franchises. So regardless of who you have out there, the appeal of UFC or for boxing is there. For boxing, they just got to find some people that can draw. They got to be able to build some particular fighters. If they can get some heavyweights out there to go and get in front for Zuffa boxing, good on them, because that's what they have to do, get boxing back up on board or whatever they got to do. With WWE, you cannot treat it like UFC or boxing. That's been made clear for a long time. No other wrestling promotion is able to do that at all. They can't do it. You can't treat it like a regular professional sport. It's going to be run differently. Sports entertainment is a different business. But the entertainment side, there's no entertainment to what's being done on WWE right now. I think to TNA to some extent as well. And you get glimpses. You get a couple of splashes of entertainment on AEW. And that's it. There's not much else. The entertainment side's missing altogether. And with that, you might have gotten a deal with ESPN. But is ESPN really happy with it? Okay, that promotional muscle that WWE is getting right from ESPN. Absolutely, they're getting it. Okay, what ESPN is doing right now for their side of the bargain is effective. They are making sure that people know about these pay-per-views. The difference is that mainstream audience even going to be interested in going to watch these pay-per-views? That's the question. Awful Announcing put out a story about this, about the fact that ESPN has been putting out nonstop promotional ads during college football. You see it where they are featuring stars up leading up to the pay-per-views for all their shows, First Take, Pat McAfee, whatever. They're doing what they can to get the word out about their partner on this deal to get people to watch these shows. I mean, even the fact that I see like during some college football game and Survivor Series is already underway, but then you're seeing the promos for it. I'm like, all right, well, let's go. Florida State. And I see it like at 8 o'clock at night. Survivor Series is on right now. Go flip over and watch it. Okay. A bit cannibalistic, but all right. We can go with that. So Dmitry Ravanos writes the story and says that Disney paid a lot of money for the TV rights that goes on in the SAC. And Oklahoma bested LSU on ABC to secure a spot in the college football playoff. ESPN also, they were focusing on the Heisman Trophy. ABC had Alabama surviving another unpredictable Iron Bowl to advance to the SEC championship game over Auburn. They also have their investment in the ACC. California beating SMU on ESPN2, where SMU is basically knocked out of the college football playoff. College football sickos could watch a thriller between Wake Forest and Duke, and also NC State humiliating Bill Belichick once again and North Carolina in the final game of the year. All that was AMC Networks. That's all Disney ESPN. That you could all watch on the ESPN app. But as someone who spends all day watching on Saturdays, neglecting my family and watching college football, the message I got from ESPN all day long was that none of it matters because wrestling's on tonight. Every quarter, every studio segment, I was reminded that football is fine, but what you should be really watching is Survivor Series War Games. Talking about Marty Smith and him being in the conference room of the Ole Miss football facility, waiting to hear if Lane Kiffin was going to go ahead and become the next coach at LSU and leave Oxford. We were told that we should really drop everything and go to the app to watch some Mysterio that isn't Rey Mysterio. That's a dig right there. Wow. Now, just like with the SEC, Disney paid a lot of money to be in the bed with WWE. By the way, people were complaining about the fact that Peacock is going to be dropping the library that WWE has, right? And not even the whole library went up there on Peacock, but that deal's about to end. And that library is not going to be accessible to anybody to watch coming up. It's not going to ESPN. It's not going to Netflix. We don't know where it's going. We're not aware about that. So if you want to watch classic content, you don't have a library to go for it. Unless it's going to Netflix or somewhere else, we don't know yet. That hasn't been dealt with. Now, Dimitri says, I get why is bigger event programming for the company's new app brings over a large, loyal audience, It's also just good TV. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that just because the outcomes are predetermined that wrestling is fake. To those men and women, it's real athletes who really endure wear and tear. To quote Jim Cornette, ain't nothing fake about that. But because professional wrestling involves great athletic skill, it does not mean it's a sport. The debate comes to a screeching halt at that predetermined outcome, quote unquote. And that's what makes WWE fundamentally different from anything else that ESPN carries. So the emphasis points on ESPN promoting the WWE fundamentally changes ESPN. Right. They're trying to say that their program is being expanded. Before this, wrestling was on ESPN as a buffer just to put something on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When there's no sports to go and cover, no live sports for that matter, ESPN had to put something on the air, so they put something sports related. That's what they had. World-class championship wrestling or AWA and things like that. Or Aussie Rules football for that matter. Even before officially partnering with WWE, ESPN was in the midst of a real wrestlification of its programming because Joe Chestatore spends Saturdays in the fall at a Power 4 football game and then goes to Raw on Netflix. Pat McAfee brings the swagger and mic skills he learned from watching and performing in WWE to everything he does on ESPN. First Take is not a sports show anymore. It's where Stephen A. Smith develops and furthers his storyline, and surprise celebrity run-ins happens. I may have never rolled my eyes harder than I did back in September when Pat McAfee gave an earnest breakdown of John Cena versus Brock Lesnar on College Game Day. Times change, networks and shows have to change with them. I get that, but this isn't even the same network as it was when it got its hooks onto so many of us. I'm not saying I need everything to be outside the lines, but ESPN used to be where sports was taken seriously. Now every minute of programming is just inventory, especially during the week of a, what are we calling them now, premium live event? For all the hand-wringing about ESPN's gambling partnerships and the inclusion of lines and spreads into everything in its coverage, where's the concern about WWE? Because that's the other part. ESPN is not so much on sports. They are plugging away. Was ESPN Bet? Now it's what, FanDuel or is it DraftKings? I forget. And then, of course, WWE. Like, that's something where you are forcing this down sports fans' throats. Are they really going to switch over and watch? That's the question. That's the buy that ESPN was banking on. That's a big gamble for them. He calls it on the right that it's not WWE being on ESPN as a platform I have a problem with. I'll admit it's not what I want from ESPN, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't speak for the whole audience. My problem is the way that network has completely sold out to the WWE. The biggest football, basketball, and hockey games are treated like an appetizer when there's a WWE event on the app. Right. I hate to break it to all of you out there, but WWE on ESPN is minuscule in magnitude to the SEC, or any college football for that matter, with the NBA, with the NHL. Okay, they don't have anything that even compares. WWE is not at that level. They're just not. They're not the level of these big sports franchises. They're making the kind of money that those franchises are starting to make now. They're starting to do that. The level of NASCAR and the level of almost like Major League Baseball, but still. Now, in the other part of this, besides what Nick Khan was saying, Freddie Prinze commented about the fact that someone at ESPN told him that they were unhappy with the deal. Well, Freddie Prinze worked in the creative team for a while, former actor, we know him very well. Sean Ross Sapp digging into this. And here's what we got from this so far. WrestlePalooza, Crown Jewel, and Survivor Series War Games have aired on the ESPN. And Freddie Prinze Jr. recapped this on his Wrestling with Freddie podcast. He mentioned that ESPN is unhappy with how the deal was played out. The Walt Disney Company owns ESPN, and Prinze Jr. said he spoke with a friend who works for Disney. That friend relayed to him that ESPN is not happy. And Prinze said this about John Cena, quote, "It's his final pay-per-view on ESPN. ESPN, by the way, so unhappy with the deal. I was talking to a friend of mine who works for Disney. He was just like, yo, they better make their money back on this deal. He just said they're hot." Burke Magnus made a media appearance in late November, ESPN president Burke Magnus, saying the partnership has been great so far. And then Sean Ross Sapp, of course, he had to go into the defense of wrestling and what was being said about ESPN and what WWE is being thrown into the mud about ESPN. And Sean Ross Sapp reported saying that I asked sources, and a WWE higher up says that, quote, no one in WWE upper management is aware of Freddie Prinze's role in wrestling or otherwise, end quote. So yeah, they just threw him under the bus. An ESPN rep claimed that they haven't even heard that chatter and have enjoyed working with WWE. Another story that also came out this week, is from Wrestling the Votes, is that comedian Andrew Schultz, he hosts the Flagrant podcast. You know, he's been out there and, you know, he's a pretty popular comedian out there. There have been sources that are being said right now from WrestleVotes that there's a fact that Andrew Schultz has made a strong impression with many people in the company. Schultz has appeared on several Netflix specials, made 2 appearances on Raw in 2025. And what's being said on that respect is that Andrew Schultz might get more involved with things so far. We don't know what that's going to be. So let's get on some other fallout from Survivor Series War Games and what happened from that. First of all, Dave Meltzer giving comments about this, saying that the pay-per-view didn't feel special at all. If you want my comments on it, I did 30 minutes about it and recapped it over on the channel here, kingofpodcasts.com. You can go listen to that. Got quite a bit of audience that actually caught up on it. So here's what Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio.
I think that they're just losing the essence of War Games completely, even with Blood and Guts. I think that, which I thought was, you know, those 2 Blood and Guts matches were tremendous, but it's just that the whole aura of it is just not there. It was no different than anything else. It didn't feel special at all. You know, I mean, like I said, the men's match was pretty good, but it just didn't have that. It didn't have that blowaway feel or anything like that.
We still haven't heard anything about Austin Theory and any reveal about who was going to be the person that was underneath the mask and was disguised to help the heels get over in War Games on Saturday. We don't even know about that yet. And they didn't address it at all with what this was said. One thing they were trying to say was that there were things that we saw from the pay-per-view at the end of the men's War Games match that were supposed to be what we're supposed to go and see. Like, there was a very clear thing. Dave Meltzer reported this, that the current plan for the 2 World Championship matches at WrestleMania 42, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, CM Punk versus Braun Breaker. So we're going to get Cody and Roman again for the undisputed WWE Championship. CM Punk would defend the World Heavyweight title against Braun Breaker. Now, Dave Meltzer says, quote, Punk getting pinned, that finish was there to tell the story. Like I said the other day, the whole thing when we came out of this match, the idea is we're supposed to know what WrestleMania, which is Cody and Roman and Punk and Braun Breaker are the championship matches. End quote. As a result, there were a number of people that were feeding back of the juvenile delusional fandom that are saying they don't want War Games next year as part of Survivor Series. And then somebody put out there on X a part about Triple H and what he does and how he talks about these pay-per-views and his whole setup for all these. So here's a montage that I thought was pretty funny.
We want to do what we do, 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 what we do. That's what we do. What we do. What we do. What we do. It's what we do. What we do. It's why we do what we do. 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 And what we.
We're only halfway into the clip.
We do what we do. 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 We do what we do. What we do. Of what we do. 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 What we do.
I can't even play the rest of the clip, but it's pretty funny. Triple H is kind of stuck in its own spot. Now, another story from Dave Meltzer. He says that Austin Theory was originally supposed to be in the War Games match, but Jacob Fatu's injury made WWE move the Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre feud up a month, freeing up both Cody and Drew for War Games, and Cody would replace Fatu, and WWE feeling Drew fit better in the match than Austin Theory. There's that. Aaron Hawani, for his credit, talking about the whole thing with TNA in a positive direction, was a bit critical of WWE, and he said this on the show.
It's just these little things. It's like, and I know that some people are like, Ariel, take a chill pill, man. Just enjoy the fights. I get it, but these things matter. Like, there's been this video being posted everywhere of like, we used to get announcements like this, and it's Connor and Jose Aldo walking in like this elaborate video, and now we get the Instagram lives, like all these things. Like, it just feels so uninspired. The matchmaking feels uninspired, the promotion feels uninspired, the announcements feel uninspired, everything feels uninspired. And I'm sorry if I care so much. I'm sorry if I care this much about the product, this much. Like, I get accused of being a hater. No, it's because I care. I love it so much, and all of it just feels so ho-hum. All of it feels so like, we just need to put this out there, and the people will eat it up, and they'll make the videos, and they'll make the content, and they'll do the interviews, and they'll do all the promotion for us. I want you guys to care as much as we care, and it doesn't feel.
Now, that's the UFC part he's talking about. But remember I said this last week? I got to go and play the clip. Did you remember what I said? I think I said this on the recap, that WWE wants to go and just do their shows, and they want to leave it up to the fans to go and make their comments about this. That's how they feel more about this than anything else. That doesn't really matter what they're doing themselves. They're just like, well, we're just going to build up what we're doing with Survivor Series just to do what they want to do with it. Create their own storyline. Here's what I said. These people that are facing each other in all these matches tonight, especially in the War Games matches, they're existing feuds. They're ongoing. And the company does nothing to heat them up. Very little. They rely on the wrestlers to do all the work. Oh, too much for us to go and pick up a pencil or pen and actually write a little something different to create a new arc in the ongoing feud between these wrestlers. No, we can't do that. No, we have to continue with the same old, and just go back to recent history. That's all we can do. And it's not the history that they created. It's the history that Vince created. Remember that. Oh, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. Well, that was one of the few things. But we're going to go back to that again. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, we're going to go back to that again. We don't need to worry about what's in the match, because what the match is doesn't matter if there's no storyline to build from it. You want to try to go ahead and interpret it the way you want to interpret it as a storyline, go right ahead. Create a storyline, go right ahead. That's how it makes you feel better, okay? The juvenile delusional fandom will go ahead and continue to just create a storyline, and they will be the ones that will be the creators. I said that on the recap of Survivor Series. And that actually holds more truth when I think about it a couple days later, because what Ariel Helwani said just confirms my point about this. That it doesn't matter about the creative that WWE creates or what UFC creates to build up for the matches they have. Because what they're going to do doesn't matter, because the fans will make the videos. The fans will create the hype. The fans will create the storylines and the build up to build themselves up and to motivate themselves to watch something they're already going to watch. But then we're not worrying about the bubble of people that are out, or people that are outside the bubble, that are not part of this juvenile delusional fandom, that don't have their disciples telling them what they should be thinking about and how the story should be planned out. Okay. You got podcasters out there that will do the fantasy booking, Twitch streamers, TikTokers, whatever. You got people out there, content creators, that will do the storyline and the booking, and they will act as the creative for WWE, because they think, well, we don't have to do anything about that. Social media will do everything for us. We don't have to create a storyline. We let the fans create the storyline. They have the pencil. Remember, what Triple H actually said, maybe we should have paid attention to that again.
We're going to empower our superstars and empower all of you.
And more importantly, we're going to give you what you want.
Okay. Triple H and what Stephanie and Shane were saying right there all together. Empower the superstars. Empower the fans. We're going to give you what you want. And I think more than anything, and this will be a focus of what we're going to talk about when we go into the best of content, when we go into the year in review, is that's what Triple H was giving us. He doesn't want to be in charge of the storylines. We know he likes which wrestlers on the roster he wants to empower. He is empowering the fans. He's giving you what he wants of which wrestlers he wants to push out there, what matches he's going to put out there himself with the team. So they're going to put out the content they want. And then they're empowering the fans. Make what you want with what we're giving you. And that worked for a couple of years. And now it's not working anymore. So we're going to bookmark this right here. Come back to this later. Because I think 7 years after we hear this, we're going to come back to this and say, you know what? I think there is something about that particular thing that's going to happen with this content, with this product, that we should have been aware of a long time ago. And look at where we are now. When I get to the year in review and we start going into that, I'm going to go back to what I said in 2018 after the McMahon family did that announcement on Monday Night Raw. We're going to go back to that and apply to how it works today, because I think there's a lot to be said. Just to make my point real clear right now and summarize it, what I said on the recap of Survivor Series was that WWE is not trying to create storylines that are going to make us care about the characters or the superstars or the matches. They're leaving it up to creating the matches and letting the fans on social media hype up those matches, get excited about those wrestlers of whichever ones they like or don't like, who they would boo, who they would cheer, and they will make up the storylines they want based on what's happened in recent history or past history, and they'll create the storyline for themselves to motivate them to watch and get other friends to watch and talk about it on their podcasts or in video clips or whatever they want. That's how they're going to do it. So we're going to get into all that very soon. We'll do a recap of the year in review, and we'll specifically talk about that point here, that we have come full circle to what was being said at that time. So look forward to that, and look forward to another Wrestlers Row podcast. Remember, in 2 weeks, we'll do the 13th anniversary. I don't know what we'll do with it. We'll just do another show, I guess, right? Another Wrestlers Row podcast, because wrestling needs us.